So regarding the recording, regarding the RVM, I just want to give you an example of how useful this can be to talking to clients out of the area. So for example, if you have family in, say, North Carolina, all you have to do is type in their address and you'll see that it starts searching and it's populated. And hopefully my low system resources won't affect us too much, but it's gonna go right there and pull up for you. Let me minimize this. Pull up the property and it's gonna instantly give you an RVM on the property. So the RVM, just to pull this up for you, is using the sales in the current market, and it's using basically the square footage of the property to give you a value. So what I always do is kind of caveat that with, you know, yeah, thanks for asking about the value of the property. I just took a look in our national proprietary database and they're saying it has a value of 443. I can't say that that's exactly accurate without seeing the home and the improvements that you made, but it gives us a starting point on the value. Everybody following on how that conversation can be helpful?
Yep.
You guys are like afraid to unmute, and yet it's very, I don't know. Very, does anybody have a property they'd like me to pull up to give another example?
I have a question actually. So I try to use RPR for a property that was in Highland Park. I see that this is like connected with GSMLS, but here we're looking at a property in North Carolina, right? So
Yes.
Is it only certain MLSs that participate with RPR?
Who is that that's asking? Sorry, I only have.
It's Melanie Padilla. I'm under Eric's account.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, some MLSs are providing more information to the database, and some like mortgage records are not showing up because they're not online. So different counties we can pull differently. So we can look at properties all across the country.
Okay. All right. So I do have a property if you want to look it up and see. I wasn't
Sure.
successful when I used RPR. It's 128 Oldfield Avenue.
Let's see if it pulls it.
And it's Hasbrook Heights, sorry. Not Highland Park.
So like any large database, you know, oh, here we go. Okay. So it's pulling it. I'm not sure why.
So when I pulled it, it didn't show that it was for sale and the property is currently on the market. So I was trying to get an RVM so that we could potentially put in an offer. But I guess that data that's there, it's when it's off the market, not accurate.
Yeah, so different MLSs do have the right to participate, you know, at different levels. So if you know it's for sale, you're still getting, you know, like information about the property. And I guess you can get that listing information from the MLS. But like, for example, you know, here's some of the other information. This computer is going to, sorry, not the computer, this connection is going to be a little bit slow. But it's pulling like, you know, statistics for the town. So having looked at that example, let's go back. Hopefully that's helpful for you. And just talk about, you know, you can, whether that customer of yours is in Hasbrook Heights or Summit or Westfield or Montclair or North Carolina, you will be able to pull an RVM. So again, coming back to this, pretty much any property in the country, you'll be able to pull a valuation based on your proprietary tools in your realtor database.
So the data would still be accurate, even though it doesn't reflect it for sale. Got it. Okay, that's most helpful. Thank you.
So Barbara, how more accurate is this
value compared to the zero estimate and other.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any tool that allows you to assess the value depends on the information that it has. So Natalia, if it's, you know, if they've just remodeled the kitchen, no online tool is gonna have that, right? They're gonna, you know, you're gonna have to know by going in. So what I would say to you is it's another tool to use and use it in the ways that it's gonna be helpful. If you look at the value of a property this year and then 12 months later, give that same seller a call and update them on the value, it's a great point of conversation to say, have you made any changes to the property that might affect the value? In your town, we're seeing values went up about 4%. So your house that I told you was 500,000 last year, now looks like it's about 520. Hope you've had a great year. You're thinking about cashing in on this asset, you know, wherever you want to take that conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Okay, so we just talked about this. I also, you know, that was kind of a conversation about maintaining data and information with your sphere and potential prospects. You can also, you know, sometimes when I get a phone call from a customer and they're like, oh, I want to meet you on Tuesday and come sell my house. And I say, great, I'll be right over. You can take a peek. And what I often do on a listing appointment is start with this conversation. You know, this property, for example, just again, going in and pulling up. This property that you've called me in to assist you with selling is showing a value in our database. And I think actually this one, which I sold, keep using touch screen on a screen that doesn't have touch. You know, this property that you've asked me to assist you with is showing in our data. I think this one, which I just sold a few months ago, was actually at the time, the RVM was like 980. And of course, we all know that we've been in a strong market. So it allows me to enter the room without giving away what my price is, but to open the door to our model shows XYZ on this property, you know, is that going to meet your goals? So again, if anybody has something that they have signed or they're still talking about pricing on, we could take a look. If we can get the screen refreshed. And I think that
So I'm Alexandra Estevez. I do have a property that I am reviewing. I came up with a very close number, 67 Mercer Avenue in North Plainfield.
Okay, let's take a look. This is the fun part. We can go see how accurate we are and what information they provide in here. 67 Mercer.
Yes.
It's signed, right? Just say yes so nobody goes bugging you.
So yeah, so I gave the between 6 and 610. We're still debating. We'll finalize the number by Friday. But my question is, in here, it's 611,540. So I took into account that she renovated the house. She bought it in 2019, did a complete kitchen, spent about 90 grand, and everything plus the rental income on the property is also up and running, right? So I took in consideration all those factors to get it to 610. When this RVM is calculated, that's not taken in consideration any of that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it can be tough to look at individual properties and know why. So first of all, it's super on target with where you are. So
I know, I was surprised.
You can show this to her and be like, see. So what probably it is accounting for is what it uses as the strongest part of its metric, which is proprietary, and I don't have, you know, the formula, but it takes the price per square foot of 146, and then it's taking the square footage, and this looks like a fairly large property, and that's what it's using to forecast. They obviously bought it at quite a discount in 2019, and they probably put, because I think I just saw that, right? They paid like
Yeah, they pay
Did I see
$445. Need a
Yeah.
little work, and so
This is perfect for you to finish that conversation with your seller and say, yeah, this is the number we were thinking, and the national metrics and the sales values in the community support that.
okay, phenomenal. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
To reconfirm. All right, phenomenal. Thank you.
And no problem. Anyone else? Just one more for fun, or we have some other things we can look at, so. No. Okay, let's go back. So that's the conversation, quick before you get too committed to a price. Sharing this, go away. Before you get too committed to a price, you can use that as a general point of conversation. Okay, so I had shown you guys this, and we talked a little bit about this property.
Excuse
Yep.
me, Barbara, it's Yolanda. Do we have the app on this site?
Yeah,
For,
I'm gonna talk to the app in a little bit, but yes, there is an app.
okay, thanks.
And I'll take these two questions too. Robert, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so what are the main ways RPR distinguishes itself from Zillow? You should keep that word proprietary right on the tip of your tongue whenever you refer to RPR. You're paying dues to a national association. It's giving you data. You'll see in a few minutes many of the more features that we can do. But as far as talking about values, which I think is the main reason people are looking at Zillow, I think you're just going to refer to the proprietary database. And then I'll show you as we keep going the other features it has in addition to Zillow.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And as far as the emails to clients, yeah, that's not a problem. So we'll cover that in our conversation. Okay. So some of the other features in here, again, sometimes you might even have, like I had a few years ago, an estate where the sellers, actually didn't even know the property was in the estate and owned by the deceased. So, it allows you to kind of very quickly pull up information about a property. And I'm just trying to hit escape again here to get out of this, back into the system. Okay. What other way can I, maybe left mouse to exit full screen? Here we go. Sorry about that. Again, somebody calls you and says, I might need to sell this property, or I'm interested in this property. It's just so great that you have like a very convenient, I know in the MLS you can pull up a tax record, but you really can't pull up everything that you can in here. So for example, just gonna imagine that this customer who bought my first house in Westfield is gonna call me up, and which is probably not likely at all, because it's a long time ago and they probably have no idea who I am or that I'm a realtor. But there was my first home in Westfield, and you can see, you can very quickly pull up a picture and just get a little bit more of information on the property. You can see, for example, there, I wanted to go to the property history, and you can see the mortgage records, which can be very helpful. And just knowing, A, if they're potentially underwater, and B, see, there I am. I did own it, really. Here's the mortgage records. So this is something that I know our mortgage guys are fantastic, but it can be very helpful to get a sense of what kind of loans the customer might have on the property. And that is pretty much available in all of the areas that have electronic mortgage records. RPR has contracted with them to attain that information for you. Let me go back, pull up a picture. Okay, so create a flyer. So, if you wanted to impress someone at a listing presentation, you can very easily, actually, I'll show you how to do it. Create a very quick flyer, maybe as a draft example of what work you would do. So taking this property, for example, you can just say, create a flyer. I had kind of pre-done this yesterday. All you have to do to create a flyer is add a headline and a text description. So, quite likely you'll give a little bit more thought to it than I did when I was doing this in 5 minutes yesterday, but you just hit run report and it will generate a flyer for you. So rather than, pull photos all over the place, and then I can show you that it takes 2 or 3 minutes generally to run a report. But as I did this yesterday, they should be ready to go. And here's the flyer. You can print that out and have that ready. I also think this is very handy if you're working with a colleague that has just listed a home on a Thursday or Friday and they ask you to do an open house on a Sunday and they don't have their marketing materials ready. You can easily print this out and use it at the open house. Done that a lot. Okay.
Barbara,
What's
what's the
next?
report? What's the report or the deliverable for a CMA? We could look on here and we could see what we see, but what is the actual deliverable that you would provide to a client as part of a CMA conversation?
So it's a loaded question. So if I was doing a full CMA for a customer, I would run the property report. And if I was doing a full CMA for a customer, I would spend more time on it than I would have time to do right now to show you how to do it. But if you want to run a quick report, you can just run a property report. So that's this one, for example. I actually had this customer call me last night, so no cheating, guys. But this customer is thinking about a move. We've been working with them a little bit and they wanted to get an update on the property value. So it's something that you can do when they call you at 7 o'clock at night and you don't have an hour to run the property. To do a more detailed property analysis, you would probably look at the valuation model in here, but that would be a longer conversation and a more in-depth. So the quick answer was the property report.
Barbara, can I ask you, so when you just pulled that up, there was one value, and then I think on the other side it said refined value. I imagine if you were sitting with a seller or somebody showing them that, how do you explain what is the refined value?
Yeah, so let me go into that a little bit more towards the end.
Okay.
And I'll take whatever extra time we have to spend a little bit more time on that. So coming back to using this with sellers, another great tool and a great report that I'll show you is the market activity report. I really like this one for you guys, especially if you're running open houses for colleagues or any area that you're not as familiar with. The reason being, it shows you what's been happening in that town over the past few weeks or months. You can set the period. So I'm having a little trouble, sorry. Yeah, here we go. I ran a market activity report yesterday, so I can pull it up quickly. So this report, again, if you're doing an open house or if you're showing a buyer that's new to the area, it kind of gives a quick insight into what's happening in that town. So for example, in Gillette, what's the estimated home price? And maybe they're considering several communities. So this is a great spot to go quickly and be like, well, let me take a look at this town versus Summit, right? Summit's probably going to be, I don't know what right now, $850 at least for the estimated home value. So if their budget is $600 and they really want to live in Summit, you want to say, well, let me take a look at some of the other towns. And by the way, have you considered Long Hill Township, because the estimated prices are a little closer to your target. Also in here that I like, if you're doing an open house, you can set whether it's over the past 3 months or 6 months and month or 3 days or a week, you can set what transactions are happening. So if again, you're going to sit in open house in a town that you don't usually work in, this would be a great way to make sure that you're prepared when the customers come in and they ask you about new listings, to have a report. And what I've done in the past is have this out with my marketing materials, one copy, And then when they ask for more details or more information, you can, as you had requested me to show you, email them this report so that you're connecting with them in a way that you can follow up and provide value. That clear? Did I go a little fast through that?
Barbara, can you please show one more time how you did that report?
Yeah, I didn't actually run it because I had done it yesterday, but let me show you. You just come here to the reports tab. And market activity report. Then you can change. We don't really need North Carolina.
Are
Oh,
you
sorry.
going to the research or you going to marketing? I'm sorry.
Went to reports.
Okay.
And then right, to run it, you have to put the correct address in right here. And then it's giving you my old reports, but where you're going to run it is down here and you select market activity report. And as I was mentioning, you can change the number of days of activity that you want to look at. So this one was set up to be in the last 3 months, but maybe you want to run, if you're doing like Summit, maybe you want like the last week because there'll be a fair amount of activity. You're doing a smaller town, you know, like Harding, maybe you want the whole last month so you can see all the activity.
I'm sorry, Barbara, where did you insert the tone that you're looking for?
Up at the top. Town is up here. You can just easily change it. Hit run report. And that'll come up in like 2 minutes. So, you know, these aren't necessarily the most, I'm going to say accurate things to send out to like your best customers, because just it being a national database and zip code based, you know, it might even miss something. So I do usually use the MLS, but for getting introduced to customers and for a general snapshot, I think the tools are really useful. All right, so we talked about market activity report. Any other questions on that?
Barbara, can I ask you a quick question?
Yep.
So
Who
we've
is
been
this?
talking about the golden letters and sending out in bulk offering to do valuations. Would you feel that this valuation tool is accurate enough for just that kind of a introductory golden letter response?
So give me the scenario.
You send out, 200 letters into your area that says home prices have gone up significantly over the past 2 years. To find out what your home could be worth in this market, reach out to me, something along those lines.
Oh, yeah,
But you don't have the
100%.
bandwidth to do 200 full-blown CMAs. This could be a quick way to do that.
No, yeah, 100%. And then when they called me, I would try to set an appointment, but I would drip, information of like my proprietary database says, 522, have you done any updates? Can I come see it?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So there's a good shortcut, guys.
Yeah. Okay. So other ways that you can help your clients with the information in this database, which I touched on 1 or 2 of these, but flood mapping is available here. And I have often used this tool to save myself a Saturday afternoon because, sometimes the price just looks too good to be true. And I don't know if I can think of an address I can pick on. The one I used to use, Long Hill Township. So if you are concerned that a property might need flood, well, I'll just show you a general map and how you can do it. Gillette, New Jersey. So you can, usually I've been using a list of the properties, but you can also switch over to the map view. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's a weird picture for a map view, but okay. Here's the map view. And I'm going to go out a little bit. And then I'm going to come down to this view tool, I think. And no, sorry. I think I'm going to go data layers. Yeah, flood zones. And this is gonna show me, and share it with you properly. Yeah, here we go. It's gonna show me, where those properties are and where the flood zone. So you see this chart over in the corner, it shows you as your flood zone risk goes up. So if, for example, the property were over here instead of over here, I'd be a little concerned and I might spend a few more minutes digging into that property to see if it required flood insurance, if that was a concern of the customer. Ready with me? Yeah. There's a couple other things you can do in here which are useful and definitely fun to play around in. For example, the school district zoning. So again, I wouldn't rely on this if I were signing up my kid for school, but if I wanted to get a general sense of a school district, you can see it's identified this school district. Now I've selected it and I can search in it.
Oh, will you just, hi, it's Claire. Will you just show me again how you got into this bit?
Flood or the school?
The flood bit.
Well, give me a town. Let's try Montclair just for fun, because I don't know it as well. So I'll be learning with you. Montclair, California. Anyone?
You might want to put an Upper Montclair possibly.
No, just give me a zip code, Hal. Any zip code?
07043.
043. It works a little better on zip codes, to be honest with you. So whenever you're struggling with a location issue, try to work with the zip code. Harding, for example, can be a little tricky because Harding gets its mail from one place, pays taxes to another place, and goes to school another place. So RPR doesn't really like that. Okay, so Claire, we went into Montclair, and now I selected the geography, and I selected the school districts. I think I need to zoom out a little bit, zoom in a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barbara. I'm not seeing where you, even though you put the address in on the top, where did you go to bring up the map itself?
So that you can switch between the list view and the map view right here.
Okay.
So you could list the properties in that community, or you can map the properties in that community. Yes, Claire, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
But I don't see how I'm sorry, I'm missing, what does it show regarding schools zoning?
So you can drill down further and you can actually pick the school district. So I've picked a random district here, and now I can search for properties that are for sale in that district. So if you
And
say someone,
does that district mean, a particular elementary school kids who live in this area would go to a particular elementary school, or what exactly does it mean?
it can. It depends on how well the national records are in the database. So I'm pretty sure that in Berkeley Heights, you can do the actual oh, 9 to 12. Oh, the screen. I'm so sorry, guys. I think you can go down to grade school in some towns.
Barbara.
Hang on.
Barbara, this is Evgenia. You can search schools on the right tab, scroll where you have driving, POIs, schools. A little bit down on the right hand tab.
Yeah, it can list them out for you.
So you have schools there, and in the schools it looks like you can do the public and elementary, so maybe that will work. But it doesn't, I see that it doesn't go, it shows where the schools are, but it doesn't show school borders.
Yeah, I mean, you take Berkeley Heights, for example, and they just redistricted the town last September. So you can't rely on this. Again, I think I've said it a few times, it's a great source for general information, but I wouldn't make it your, yes, you're sending your kid to this school if you're buying here. guys kind of a taste of all the different things that are in here, and absolutely there's school information so you can, you know, have general and then verify. Okay, we talked about flood. We talked about ownership. So I'll show you one of my favorite fun tricks, just because you guys have been such a great crowd. When I always like to tell, when I was at Thanksgiving a few years ago and my brother-in-law in Connecticut started complaining about his taxes, I was like, seriously? So then I got, you know, on the drive home, I had to go look it up. And I'm not going to pull up his, but just to give you an idea, when you are, you know, talking to someone that's not in your area. So I just picked Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. I'm going to go back to the list view. I'm going to take off sale and go to public record. Okay. And then I'm going to search, and I think that is going to pull me. So I'm going to go to more filters, and I am going to search by owner name. So this is one of my favorite things to do. Also, if I have a client moving to our area from another area, and I want to look up, oh, not working for me. I want to look up why, you know, what they're selling. This actually worked really well for me a few years ago because I just wanted to understand like their needs and what kind of home they liked. Okay, so it didn't work in New Hampshire. It does work in New Hampshire because I've done it before, but there must be some glitch that's happening right now. But you can look, my point is, you can look by last name for the property owner and not just in your own MLS, but in other areas. And I know it didn't work in New Hampshire, but it has in the past, to see what kind of property they're selling. Everybody's seeing that? So I just typed in the community. It's really frustrating for me. It didn't work. So I'm trying a random zip code. And I'm going to keep that Lewis last name because that is a good one. Ah, still not working. Anybody else have an out-of-state zip code for me? Top of your head? No one? Really? What do you got?
Barbara, 04015.
Thank you, Lucy. And let me try more filters. I'm trying to use touchscreen here again. I am going to try. What state is that, Lucy?
It's Maine.
So it's a smaller community. Okay, I did bring it up. Okay, there we go. So I'm really sorry that didn't work in New Hampshire for some reason, but here's what I was trying to show you. In this random town in Maine, and your client's telling you they're moving from there and their last name is Smith, and they're like, oh yeah, we live on Bass Road, and you're like, don't know the area, you can find out a lot about the property that they are selling. So you could see how that could be useful preparing, you know, just getting to know their needs. So property history, like when did they buy this property? In 2016. And there's their mortgage. So, you know, I can imagine, I've used this many times in the past, again, just to get familiar with what their needs are and maybe what their old loan was. Okay.
Barbara, apologies. Yeah. Can you please show again? I was switching back and forth. Can you please show again which tab did you get? Was it public records in research?
So again, you're going just to property search.
Yes, property search.
And you just type in the property zip code. Mm-hmm. And then, yes, I switched from sale to public records here.
And did you have to put this sold within or not?
No.
No. Okay. So
you can, in theory, and I'm, you know, I don't want to hear about every glitch in the system as I just found a few myself, but you can, in theory, look up property records and tax, you know, information on any property in the country. And on the MLS and how much they're participating, you know, the sales, and again, depending on the mortgage database and the, if that county, like if it's, you know, middle of Idaho and they don't have their mortgage records online at their, what do you call it, deed recording, you might not, but generally you can.
So can you, where do you put the last name of the seller? I was able to, of the owner, more filters, yes?
Yeah, more filters. And there's a lot of other things you can do. I just like to show some of the top things, but yeah, there's the seller, the owner's name.
Oh, owner name. Okay, thank you. That's what
No
I missed.
problem.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, let's keep going and talk about some of the things you can do for your buyers. So we actually tipped into this a little bit already, the geographic and school data. So we'll keep going on that. The population is one I like to talk about. So we didn't talk about this report yet, so I'll come over to reports. And I've used this in the past, a neighborhood report. And I like to tell people the neighborhood report is the one I would start with if you really haven't used this too much, because you can't get in too much trouble. In other words, you know, sometimes you'll give this to a customer and then they'll ask you every detail about every piece of information in the report. But if you stick with the neighborhood report, you're in pretty good shape because it's not as detailed as property specific. So for example, a neighborhood report on Sparta, you know, maybe you're being asked to show properties in Sparta and you haven't done that before. So you wanted to know, for example, the population, which is here. Sorry, maybe here, maybe a little bit farther down, but the estimated housing value. And again, when you have customers coming in from, you know, out of New Jersey, they just might not have a sense that Sparta is a little more rural and a population of 141,000 population density. So it can be really interesting to compare that. And even, you know, someone that calls about Summit, again, I like to use like Summit and Long Hill. They're only 5 miles apart and yet a very different dynamic in terms of population. So the neighborhood report is another one that I often run and put out at open houses, just because if people are new to the community, it's a great way to talk to them about the community. You know, there is income per capita information in here. So it's missing for Sparta, you know, like I said, the database is not perfect, but it does give you Sussex County. So as I'm sure I would guess Union County, well, it's hard to say because it's a diverse county, right? But I'm going to say it's more in the 70, 80,000 income per capita. Yeah. And then it can, you know, when people ask questions about very different things, elevation, rainfall, there's just some information there to keep them talking about the community and what might or might not work for them. Okay, so that is the neighborhood report. So geographic, we talked about that. We'll keep going.
Barb, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So in reference to like marketing reports for buyers, anything specifically for investors? Like,
yep, I haven't really talked about investors yet, but I am planning to.
Okay.
Let's see, it looks like we covered the market activity earlier, so I don't think we need to go back to that. Okay, so I did mention the app. So I can't really show you too much on the screen about the app, but you can go to the App Store and download it. It is great to use when you're out at properties and you're able to pull up a lot of that neighborhood information, like average sales price in a community. Another way to use the app is to run the reports. And if doesn't apply as much anymore, but if you were going into the office to prepare for your open house, you could run the report and then just get into the office and hit print. So I just wanted to make you guys aware that the app was out there. Although I can't really show you the features of it on here. Let me take a look at the last piece we had put together. Investors, there we go, leading right into your question. So there's a couple things for investors in here. The one that I use the most is, let's see, let's pull up investment property, which is something like I think, does anybody have an investor that's doing rentals? I think of a good address to look at. Oops, Summit. We can. All right, hang on. Let's go back to research and we'll take a look. So say your customer is looking to purchase a property for investment and it's in Summit. I'm gonna go back to listings for sale. I need to clear these filters. I'm not sure why my search button isn't showing up. I'm gonna reset, and then I get my search button back up. So looking at properties for sale in Summit, let's just say that they were thinking of buying, here we go, Ashwood, perfect. Or has a whole analysis tool in here. So you would come down here and see this valuate. So you can go in and do a whole property analysis of the cash flow for an investor. And it actually produces a pretty robust report when you go ahead and put in, you know, all of their details of how much they're going to put down and how much revenue they expect and all of that. So there's a whole, you know, analysis. Let's see if I can submit it without making any adjustments to it and give you an example of the report.
Can you
So,
just
yeah.
show, Barbara, could you just show how you got to this? You went a little quick. If you wouldn't
I
mind.
just over here, evaluate
Okay, evaluate. Okay.
and analyze the property. And then it pulls up a separate program. And you can use this, I think you can use it unlimited. You can only save it for a few properties at a time. Then they want you to subscribe. But it can give you a very, you know, quick and dirty analysis and cash flow projection for your client. Oh, I think it was Jenny that asked about investing, yes?
Yes, that's really great. But as far as like if they don't know where to invest, I mean, they're thinking northern New Jersey, Summit, but areas around Summit, other towns. Like, is there something like a market report, you know, something like that?
No, I mean, because people invest in all of those communities, so you can't really, I mean, there's all kinds of searching that you can do for them. I think this goes to the same tool, this investor analysis. Yeah. You know, it doesn't really tell them where to invest. You'd have to look at whether that property provides an income that meets their needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was really good about the analysis. Awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So actually, I'm glad I made it through all 10 of those points. And I do think I promised a couple of people that I would go back and look at a little more detail. So Hal, you had asked me about CMA. So I can show you guys that if you want to take a few minutes. Yes?
Yes.
Why not? I'm not sure if this is gonna, I don't need it to show me. So let's pick a property. If anybody wants to suggest one, it can be interesting for you, or I can just pick one. Anyone have a?
I have a new listing today. Can I use that?
Sure. Yep.
Okay, it's 166 Cambridge Court, Clifton.
I think to the, what MLS is that usually in?
Garden State.
Oh, perfect. Okay, perfect. So yeah, this is a great example of how this can be useful. So you can see that, and who is it, the listing? Sorry.
It's Tamima.
Tamima. Okay, perfect. So here's your listing. Looks gorgeous. And okay, we can talk a little bit about the value of this property. So you've listed it at $359 yesterday. Congrats. The system gave it a valuation model of 363, so it's showing as relatively in alignment with you. There are a couple of ways that you could further, if you hadn't listed it yet and you were still talking to the customer about the value, a couple of ways that you can look at the value. The first is the RVM. That's the like, okay, let's have a quick conversation. This is what our national proprietary database is telling me that the property is worth. The next step would be to refine the value. So maybe you've had a longer conversation with them and they've told you, you know, the two properties around have just sold for XYZ, or, you know, something else that's very general information about the property or the area. So you can refine the value by just making a few quick changes. You'd probably want to verify the information that's here. And I'm just guessing, but 3-bed, 2-bath, something like that, right? I'm hitting apply, but that's just really updating the database. So what you can do if they have just redone the kitchen, for example, is you can pull up this menu of kitchen remodel, you know, different improvements, and say they just completed it and that they spent $20,000 on it. This tool is meant to say that if the average house in this community has, you know, a 15-year-old kitchen and they have just updated theirs, then this additional 20,000 is probably going to net them more than what another similar property would sell for. It's going to automatically depreciate that 20,000. And this one's pretty dramatic, so may or may not be accurate. But what I always tell customers is, you know, you did your kitchen 5 years ago. That's awesome. It's beautiful. You know how you drive a new car off the lot and it's worth like $10,000 left? The same thing happened with your refrigerator. So I don't really care that you spent $25,000 on it. It's really not worth that anymore because that refrigerator is now only worth half of what you paid for it. So this tool is kind of helping me with that argument, and it's automatic. So that's like a quick way to adjust the property. There's also the ability to adjust it by needed home improvements. Well, you know, Susie Smith, I know you've lived in this house since 1962, and I know it's been perfect for your family, and I know that these bathrooms work absolutely great, but guess what? Buyers today do not want to buy a bathroom that is like more than 10 years old. So you say, okay, you need to reflect the value of a needed bathroom update. And of course, you know, your wording with your customer might be much different, but you know, you need to reflect that a new bathroom is needed versus the competition of other homes that people could buy. And then lastly, there's the ability to refine it by market and home conditions. So, you know, we are the local experts and we know that our market is strong, but maybe it was stronger a month ago. We know that that exterior condition of, you know, whatever it is, old siding needs to be updated. So you can use these levers and make adjustments that affect the number that you're giving the customer, and then just explain it in a way that's politically correct. Okay, so you can see from those adjustments that I've made that the 363 has gone up and down, and that we've come out to a refined value of 366. So that might be exactly what you think the house should be marketed for. You know, if it's not, you again are the local market expert, so you want to go in and say, well, you know, the interior condition is going to give us more, whatever you need to do to get to the number that you want to advise the customer. With me on that? Anyone questions? Okay. The third way, just, and then you can create a report that will reflect those changes and show you in the report kind of that, those bars that you can move up and down. I believe that we just hit run down here, hopefully. Of course, my Zoom's in the way, but run report.
Question, Barb.
Yep.
So I gather that you use Otto's the guide, the home guide, right? And so that's question number one. I would say, I would assume yes.
Yes,
right?
the answer is yes.
And then also there's a spreadsheet, the auto spreadsheet that unfortunately I don't have it yet because I haven't attended one of the workshops and it's not scheduled yet. Do you use that or you just rather use this? This is what you use. There's an Excel sheet that auto provides where you put in the numbers and you do the comparison.
Yeah, what I do when I run reports, I have that in my profile. So when you run these reports, and I'll go back in a minute and just show you, like, the presentation of the report is one of the benefits of this program, that you can provide a printed product. You can add your own information to the reports. And the auto spreadsheets is one of the things that I have added. I guess it must be under settings. So yes, and as far as, yes, I use the auto spreadsheet in my reports. Show you. And again, when I'm going to meet with a new seller, it's often something that I will bring with me, the property report, just so I make sure that I have accurate information. I feel like it's computer's running away from me a little bit. Okay, my reports. So for example, it should be in my default report setting. So here's that report that we just ran on the property in Clifton. And so you can upload something like this, which is my, a little bit dated, unfortunately, like bio sheet. So you put that in the front of the report to show people a little bit more about you. And then at the end of the report, I have that auto sheet that you're referring to right here.
So you add that to the report so the sellers can see that. You share the guide with them? Is that?
If I'm talking to them, sorry, I don't know why I'm not finding that page easily. Then when I'm talking to them, I can say, here it is. You know, you have added a kitchen or you have updated a bathroom, and here's what on a $400,000 house, auto, this appraiser that we use for data in New Jersey is saying that how that impacted the price. You know, a bathroom upgrade of a full bath, $12,000 at the $400,000 price point, and $25,000 at the 1.2 price point. Yes, so yes, I do use auto as the benchmark.
Okay.
We are pretty tight on time. I apologize, but I can take one or two questions. Until one, I do have a following commitment, though. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I cut off that question. Go ahead.
So Barbara, it was just Mary Ann. So when you use the auto in your, I guess you're doing it when you, in the reports where you're actually kind of like adjusting the price and seeing what it would be worth. Who's, like, when you actually do this, is it just, does this populate for other people to see, or is it just something that's kind of personal to your database?
No, what you put in your report only shows up on your section of the database.
Right. So like someone pulling up, you know, this 166 Cambridge Court, if you put in a $50,000 kitchen and this and that, they're not going to see that.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
And by the way, I recall now somebody asked me about emailing the report. So it's super simple. You just email it like this. However, I will tell you, I would email it to yourself first and review it. Every once in a while, there's a glitch in running the reports. Yesterday, when I was trying to run them, some of the maps weren't populating and they had a ticket in and I put in another one, but I don't like to send things, you know, without making sure that they're going to be accurate. And I wouldn't say this, I would rely on this. So I would send it to yourself first and then forward it.
Got it. Now for your listing presentation, do you generally use this on a iPad or do you print this out? I mean, some of these reports are like, you know, 80 pages long. What do you find just is best?
Yeah, I mean, I do use the iPad. I print only the pages that I want also. So if I was going to run a report right now on this property, for example, you can use this plus button over here, and then you can choose what you want to include and not include. So I think someone earlier had asked me about showing the multiple values. So I'm often making sure that I'm only showing the value on the report that I want included. And then like another one I ran recently had historical photos, and those can be fun and interesting to chat about, but they can also be pages of old pictures.
Yeah,
So-
no, I find it sometimes can be too much and duplicative information. So you really do have to go in and maybe take some of this stuff out.
I have a question. Let's say you get a call, you know, it's just a random call that someone wants to sell their house. Where do you go first? Do you hop onto your local MLS or do you come here?
Usually come here because I can like look at mortgage records and just like historical sales transactions and a little bit more information.
Okay. And then, sorry, this is sort of a two-part question, but you know, the best way to get fluent at something is practice, practice, practice. How long did it take you to kind of, you know, you're like, oh, I have to look over here. You know, for those of us who are not familiar with this system, are there other, this is a great opportunity, by the way, thank you so much. But are there other ways that you would recommend? I mean, I think I vaguely recall maybe seeing on the MLS itself some trainings on this as well. What else?
Yeah.
Where else would you point us?
RPR offers a lot of training. So I've just gone over here to the Learn tab, and there's webinars on all these different things. There's step-by-step. So you can see
Okay.
here, there's a lot of learning tools. It used to be at the bottom. There's a Facebook page. Used to be at the bottom, which Zoom is like in the way of. So I think they've moved it to, well, here, RPR Learning. So you can listen to all these webinars. You don't have to listen to me. So there's a lot of resources out there
Wow.
for sure.
Great, great. Thank you.
Yeah, hours and hours. Fun things to do on RPR. All right, well, thank you guys. I'm glad that you guys were able to join, and I hope that it was helpful for you.
Thank you. Very good.
Thanks, Barbara. Terrific.
Thank you, Barbara.
Very helpful.
good
Thank you
afternoon.
so much, Barbara.